I went into this livestream not expecting anything crazy. I really thought this patch was going to be a filler. Like a cute nod-krai Christmas update, maybe some snowball event, and that's it. And then Hoyoverse does the unexpected and reveals 2 new acts to the nod-krai Archon Quest and shows us full models for Alice and Nicole. I don't think I've ever been this shocked by a Genshin livestream before. And honestly, I'm not underestimating Hoyo ever again. It really feels like the era of filler patches is over, with nod-krai at least. Alice was first introduced all the way back in version 1.0, and after 5 years, we finally see her full model, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Until now, she's only ever appeared as a disembodied voice or a dodoko, so imagine how hard this reveal hit. According to the livestream, Alice is a nod-krai for 2 reasons. First, she's dealing with one of her major Hex and Circle duties, something tied to the stability of the world's border. And second, she's here because an unexpected friend suddenly showed up. Alice is responsible for maintaining the stability of the world's border, and since nod-krai sits right at the edge of Teyvat, it's the place feeling the disturbance the most. It's tied directly into something we've actually heard about before, Moon Prayer Night. Back in Luna 1, Act 1, the Traveler asked if they could use the Eternal Moon's marrow to see the true past. But Llama told us that the Moon marrow can only be accessed once a year, during Moon Prayer Night. The date changes every year, and the ritual happens on the night when the moon is physically closest to Teyvat. That's also the moment when nod-krai's Kuvaki is at its strongest. In real life, we have something called a supermoon, a full moon that happens when the moon is at its closest point to Earth in its orbit. The technical term is a perigee syzygy, which just means the Earth, moon, and sun line up. People often associate supermoons with things like earthquakes, volcanic activity, or even bad omens. There's no real scientific proof of that in real life, but in Genshin things might be very different. The story continues as the region prepares for its own version of a supermoon event, Moon Prayer Night. It's the grand festival held on the night when the moon is closest to Teyvat, and this year it's extra significant because it also marks Columbina's final night before she travels back to the moon. The nod-krai crew is rallying around her, planning a farewell celebration so she can leave with happy memories before she returns home. However, we're told by Alice that Columbina's intended method of returning to the moon is unlikely to work anymore. We mentioned syzygy earlier, and now Genshin is using the term again, this time in the nod-krai Archon Quest. The first place we ever saw it was in the Spiral Abyss, the moment of syzygy, the time for the monthly Abyss reset on the 16th of every month. In nod-krai, we hear about something called the tri-lunar syzygy, which likely means the moment when all 3 of Teyvat's moons align perfectly. And because of this phenomenon, the border of Teyvat has become unstable. That's why Alice shows up in person. Now, when she says border, that could mean 2 different things. The border between Teyvat and the Abyss. Nod-krai sits on the literal edge of the world, and it's where we see the strongest abyssal activity. In the hymns of the far north, the 3rd descender Satalainen opened the gates of Piola, which might be the same border Alice is talking about. She even says Teyvat's border normally blocks out large amounts of abyssal power, so the fact it's weakening is a huge problem. The border could also be the false sky, Teyvat's firmament, the protective shield that keeps Teyvat away from outer space. If all 3 moons line up, or if one moon comes dangerously close, the firmament might thin or distort. Maybe when the moons align, a gateway opens. A weakened border could allow an opening for Columbina to return home, a tear in the firmament for aliens to come into Teyvat easily, or abyssal power leaking into Teyvat. But here's the thing, 2 of the 3 moons shattered. The frost moon is sealed beyond the firmament, and Columbina herself is rejected by the world. Things in Teyvat aren't the same as they once were, which means the conditions Columbina would need for a safe return simply doesn't exist anymore. The path she's supposed to take can't function under the world's current state. It was bound to fail from the start. Nod-krai has a Moon Prayer Night every year, but something is different about this specific one. So I don't think she's going back to the moon, but rather she's going to be confronted with the truth about who she really is. This mirrors a pattern Hoyoverse keeps using. Scaramouche learning about his true past, us realizing Khaenri'ah isn't the real Hydra Archon, Durin being rewritten back into the world by unconventional means. Columbina is next. Luna 3 is setting her up for the moment she learns why the world rejects her, what happened to the real Frost Moon, and whether she is truly its goddess, or the Welkin Moon, or even the 4th moon of nod-krai that failed to form. Hoyoverse seems to be preparing her for a downfall, revelation, then rebirth story arc. I just want to take a quick detour and talk about a major change that will be happening on my channel. I'm really excited about this because this is the first time anything like this has ever happened. I've been having so many issues working on Genshin videos recently. Projects wouldn't load, clips were lagging, and my room was overheating. It was also becoming impossible for me to play anything. I loved that PC, but it was clearly time for an upgrade, and I got saved just in time. So today, I'm proud to be announcing this major change on my channel. Starting today, I have a long-term partnership with iBUYPOWER iBUYPOWER and HYTE. Together, iBUYPOWER's experience and HYTE's creativity make for some of the most beautiful builds out there today. They make PC gaming simple, whether you want to build your dream rig, grab a ready-to-ship setup, or go portable with a gaming laptop. And check out what they hooked me up with. The brand new HYTE X50 case. Powered by an NVIDIA 5080 graphics card, AMD Ryzen 7 9800X 3D processor, 64 gigs of memory, and 8 terabytes of storage. And look, they even gave me pretty butterflies to decorate my PC. This PC is an absolute beast. I can game, edit, and render without breaking a sweat. Every PC comes with a 2-year parts warranty, 3-year labor warranty, and lifetime tech support. And because they buy in bulk, their prices are super competitive. You'll even find them at Best Buy, Costco, and Micro Center. So if you're looking for the perfect gaming PC, whether you're casual or a hardcore builder, iBUYPOWER and HYTE have you covered. Big thanks to them for powering my channel and making sure I can keep bringing you the content that you love. Thank you so much iBUYPOWER and HYTE for sponsoring today's video and my channel. Speaking of rebirth, we need to talk about Durin. Durin hears that his mother's dying wish was a book, and he's confused. Also note that they don't call Ryndaughter his mother, they call him Child of M. He even calls Ryndaughter Aunt Ryndaughter. The mage M is Anya M. Andersdotter, the author of The Boar Princess. Her name is definitely a reference to Hans Christian Andersen, a famous fairy tale author whose mother's name was Anne-Marie Andersdotter. Andersdotter was one of the 3 creators of Simulanka, the fairy tale realm built by Alice, Barbeloth, and herself. And it was Andersdotter who created Mini Durin. The original Durin, the giant dragon corpse and dragon spine, was an abyssal creation made by Ryndaughter. He died misunderstood, corrupted, and hated. Andersdotter wanted to give that story a second chance. So she created a new Durin, free from the abyss, shaped by imagination and empathy. You can say it was her quiet rebellion against fate itself by giving a doomed creature a chance at a real life and a happy ending. And that's why our Durin calls her mother. But when Mini Durin merged with the remains of original Durin, he absorbed some abyssal aura. That's why animals fear him even though he's gentle. He carries 2 sources of power inside him, the abyss and fairy tales, which I like to view as human imagination. Even Minsleif hints at it. We humans have our humanity. In other words, human imagination, compassion, and stories, the things that seem weak and inferior to the divine, might actually be the very tools that can rewrite fate itself. And that's exactly what Andersdotter tried to do. Durin apparently has a task ahead of him, something so heavy that he asks, if I fail, will I create yet another tragedy? It was probably Andersdotter's final wish and her biggest regret that she never lived long enough to see Durin's story fully play out, or to watch him get the happy ending she'd hoped for. Now the rest of that story is in Durin's hands. But Durin's story isn't the only one taking center stage in this version, because now we have to talk about Nicole. Nicole Reeyn is a prophetess Hexen Circle member and the woman who studies the direction of Teyvat. She's physically mute but speaks telepathically, something we've experienced in both Sumeru and Fontaine. And from the moment we first saw her with golden wings and a halo, we can probably assume that she's an angel. And she apparently only recently got a human form. We've theorized in the past that Nicole could become the future vessel for the Eternal Moon's marrow if the Traveler can't hold it forever. And we've theorized that if not the Eternal Moon, she might have strong connections with the original goddess of the Frost Moon instead. Nicole is most likely the figure who's been secretly protecting nod-krai with us in the past 4 acts. The situation outside nod-krai happens to also be getting more chaotic. Over at the gate of Khaenri'ah under Sumeru, we see Mona monitoring a crisis. The laws and limits of the world are apparently shifting. Abyssal activity is encroaching closer and closer to Mondstadt, affecting characters so much that Venti and other older Mondstadt characters are literally getting in-game buffs to reflect the changing climate of Teyvat's story. Why is Khaenri'ah suddenly involved again? Well, one of the 5 sinners already has his eyes on nod-krai, and historically, Mondstadt and Khaenri'ah have always been tied together. The name Khaenri'ah even translates roughly to Betrayer of the Winds in Arabic. And between Dainsleif's first appearance in Mondstadt and Albedo's fears about losing control and destroying Mondstadt, something ancient might connect all 3 regions. My guess is that way back in ancient history, Khaenri'ah and Mondstadt may have once been part of the same unified civilization until the Khaenri'ah side broke away or betrayed the other. That split could explain the long-standing tension between these 2 regions. Mondstadt grew into a religious nation shaped by wind and freedom, while Khaenri'ah became a godless, fully independent society. And then there are the Phantoms and Traveler's spaceship, the unanswered question of why the sibling was seen outside of it before it ever opened. The phantoms appearing when the moon is closest to Teyvat, just like the ley line anomalies in Inazuma and the ghosts of the Night Kingdom. Voice speculated that the Irminsul, the world's database, might come from lunar origins. If the Irminsul really did come from the moons, then this phantom phenomenon seems to make even more sense. Finally, we see Venti at the ruins where the Istaroth world quest took place. It's so surreal to finally see the connections between Venti and the God of Time. Wind and time have always been intertwined in Genshin's world, and now Venti needs to tap into that old connection. Meanwhile, Wanderer is also here, and given his history with Dottore, I wouldn't be surprised if he's already on Dottore's trail. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much HYTE and iBUYPOWER for sponsoring my channel. I'm your leafy lore keeper Minsleif, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so that you don't have to.